Welcome, everybody. My name's Dave Harden. I'll be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshop on Social Security filing strategies and more. Thanks so much for your kind comments this evening to get us started. We're going to do some trivia, but I just need to do a quick sound check. I always like to check at least the two bigger channels. I don't think there's any need to check the smaller ones, but if you can hear my voice and you're either on Facebook or YouTube, just let me know. Use the chat function. Some of you already found that. Thank you for your comments. Just give me a thumbs up or a sounds great. I'm in Pennsylvania this evening. I'd love to hear what state you're in as well. We usually have people from all over. We're expecting, more than 100 people tonight, so be surprised if we don't get at least that. And it's going to be 3 below tonight where I'm at. I don't know how you're doing, but it's cold. So if you could just let me know if you can hear me. Some of you have already chimed in. Thanks, Joyce, Missouri. Looks like you're on Facebook. Janice is on YouTube. I get a Wisconsin. Thanks, Jay. And you hear me fine from Arkansas. Thanks, Rose. All right. Sounds like we are great. I'm gonna start some trivia here. Let's just get started. I'll dig in. Ask our tech team to pull up the trivia questions. Thanks, Patricia. And then we'll do this right up until the top of the hour. These are all simple, multiple choice questions, A, B, C, some D's. You can just use the chat function to participate. Just throw in the number and we'll get started. Let's chime on here. All right, first question. How are the first 3 numbers from your Social Security number derived? The first 3 digits. Everybody has 9, 3, then 2, then 4. Those first 3, where do they come from? A, zip code of your birth city. Hi, Diane from California. It's great to have you here. B, zip code of the issuing Social Security office. C, they're completely random. Or D, they represent the state where you were born. Is it A, B, C, or D? Just throw in your answers and we will, we've got a bunch of questions here we can get through before we get started. So let's just have some fun. I see a D. You're welcome, Diane. D. Oh, look at all these D's. D, 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 D. Some more D's. Is there anything other than a D? All right, everybody's. Oh, there's a C. Thanks, Carol. There's a G. No, that's Denise. You're in Georgia. Thank you. Great to have you here. I hope you have power. I'm assuming you do if you're on here. So that was sort of a dumb question or a dumb statement. All right, there's a C. All right, let's give the answer here. A drum roll. It is B. It sort of threw you guys for a loop here. It actually is the zip code of the issuing Social Security office. So for me, I went to the office, the Social Security office, when I was 14 years old because I needed a Social Security number to get a job. And I applied for a job and they said, "Where's your Social Security number?" And I said, "I don't have one." They said, "Well, we can't hire you unless you have one." So I went down, got my mother to drive me because I was too young. And that's how I got it. So it's the office that got you there. All right. Next question. Why have more than 40,000 people claimed 078051120 as their Social Security number? Is it A, the number was stolen and sold over 40,000 times? B, the Social Security machine got stuck on that number and simply issued it to 40,000 people in a row? Or C, it was a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands of people? A, B, or C? I see a C already. Interesting. All right, just throw in your answer, A, B, or C. This is interesting. A, number where it was stolen over 40,000 times. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Jay. B, the Social Security machine got stuck and the number was issued to 40,000 people. Or C, it was a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet. I see some B's. Interesting. Some A's. Some A's. Interesting. All right, I'm going to say so far the A's have it. Let me get through here. There's a B. It's almost tied, A and B. All right. I hope I'm not perplexing you guys. Let's look at the answer. It is C. I feel like this is an episode of Strange But True. This is Woolworths actually had a marketing company that came in and designed a wallet. You know how they like to put pictures in and things to make it look like, this is how your wallet could look if you owned it. I don't know that wallet space has a high regard for most people, but this happened in the late 60s, and it certainly did. And the executive asked for his assistant's Social Security card to put it in to show the printer what it would look like. And the printer just assumed he wanted it copied exactly the way it was. That's how this happened. Sold almost 1 million of these sold. 40,000 people said, hey, I'm getting something extra. All right. Bear with me. Under what circumstances can you get a new Social Security number issued to you? Is it A, religious or cultural issues with certain numbers? B, you're experiencing ongoing issues after being the victim of identity theft? C, the number enables people to harass or endanger your life? Or D, all of the above? A, B, C, or D? Religious or cultural issues is A. You're experiencing ongoing issues of identity theft is B. Number enables people to harass or endanger your life is C. D is all of the above. Yeah, that was a wow, wasn't it, Joyce? All right. Take your guess. I see a D. I see a C. Couple D's. Another D. Oh, there's an A. All right. We've got everything but B. More D's, more B. Oh, there's a B. Thanks, Maria. All right. Looks like everybody, we're well represented here, but I'm going to say the overwhelming answer is D. Let's take a look. You were absolutely collectively right. D is the answer. Any of those will get you a new Social Security number. Now, that's good enough for Social Security. For the government, you still have to convince your employer and your creditors to switch it. And some of them might be reluctant to do that. They will. I mean, you can make them, but boy, it's hard. All right. I think we've got time for one or two at most more questions. What year was the first Social Security benefit paid? Was it A, 1936 for $28.17, B, 1937 for 1967, or C, 1940 for $22.54? Give you a little bit of background. Social Security Act was signed into law in 1935. So when was the first benefit check paid out under Social Security? A, 1936, B, 1937, C, 1940. A, B, or C? If you just throw in your answers, and I think this is probably going to be our last question that we can get through at this point. A, B, or C? 1936, 1937, 1940. I see some A's. I see some B's. I see some more A's. I see some more B's. There's a C. Interesting. So every category is represented, but it's looking like A is the. We'll give it another 10 seconds here. There's a couple more B's. Interesting. All right. All right. Let's do the drum roll here. What's the answer? Is it A, B, or C? It's C, 1940 for $22.54. Here's the reason. Social Security is self-funded. It collects its own money through FICA, and then it pays out the money from FICA that it collects to recipients. So when they started in 1935, they couldn't start benefits because they didn't have enough money in the trust fund to be able to pay out. They had to gather enough funds to be able to start somebody's benefit, not stop it. That's why it took 5 years to be able to do that. All right, it's top of the hour. Let's pull up the actual workshop. Ask our tech team to do that. I'll take a quick sip of water. And we'll get started. All right. My name is Dave Harden. I am going to be your host this evening. Let me get a little bit of housekeeping done, and then we'll get right into it. People often ask, this is probably the most common question I get, is how long? How long is this going to take, Dave? Typically, we go about an hour and 20 minutes. Don't hold me to the exact time. I'm not a machine, so it can go longer or shorter, but it's mostly an hour and 20 minutes. At the end of which I always do a Q&A, a question and answer. We've always done that. We found that people have lots of questions. You're welcome to ask those questions at any time tonight. Just use the chat function that you've been using in the trivia questions. Click on the chat, type your question in. You can do that now if you know what you want to ask. You can do it at any time during the workshop. I encourage you to do that before the end of the workshop, not because you can't do it afterwards, but because it will keep that, it'll eliminate the lull that happens if I don't ask you to do that now. The lull meaning when I finish the workshop and I wait for people to start typing, we can use that time to answer the questions that you already want to ask. So do that. It will help us help you and get through this as quickly as we reasonably can. Okay, let's get started. All right, thanks so much. Again, my name is Dave Harden. I am a registered financial consultant, an RFC. That's a designation from the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants that is for retirement planning and asset management in retirement. I also carry the NSSA designation. That is the only college accredited designation in the country for Social Security and taxes. I've spent years and years and years working and studying and talking about Social Security. I've been published nationally doing that kind of thing. I'm also the author of the Social Security workbook that if you stick with us at the end of the evening, I'll give you complimentary if you'd like it. That being said, I also own a registered investment advisory firm. The SEC requires me, because I am licensed through FINRA with a Series 65, and I own this registered investment advisor. I need to disclose that to you. That being said, let me put you at ease a little. I'll talk a little more about that in a second, but I'm not going to talk about investments tonight. We're not going to talk about, hey, give me some money and I'll invest it over here for you, or I'll recommend a stock for you. That's not what this is about. We're going to focus on Social Security and taxes and the implications of those in your retirement. That's what this is about tonight. No worries. This RIA, Registered Investment Advisory firm that I own with my son. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary in January, and I think it was the 6th of January. We've had an incredible run, maybe one of the fastest RA growth venues that I've ever seen. We have clients in 43 different states. I think 1,231 client accounts. It is a massively successful firm, and I am so grateful for it. But what I'm really grateful for is the chance to work with my son That is just a joy to be able to do that. I am your age or older, and he is in his 40s, and he is so good at this. But the truth is, to see him just blossom and do such a good job. Now we have many advisors that work for us and with us, and we have offices in a couple of states as well. But most of our business is done just like I'm going to do with you here tonight. That being said, that's it. You've just heard everything I need to say about that. I've fulfilled my obligation to the SEC, and we're going to move on. Okay. Why is Social Security such a hot topic? Every single day, 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65. Actually, this year is the there's a name for it. Go 65 or something. We have the most baby boomers turning 65 per day that we've ever had, almost 11,000 per day in 2026. It's a ton. That's 70,000 a week, 280,000 a month. Last year, 3.64 million of us turned 65. No wonder Social Security is such a hot topic. And that's going to continue for about the next 10 or 11 years. It'll continue afterwards, just at slightly lower rates, but it's still a ton. This is you and me. And when we get close, we get more interested in stuff. It's like, have you ever bought a car? I bought a car last year, and it was a car that I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to. And all of a sudden, every other car I see on the road is that car. Well, that's exactly what happens when you get close to Social Security. All of a sudden, all you think about or talk about is Social Security. All you see online is Social Security. All right. So what does this mean? 65%. This is interesting stuff. 65% of retired middle income Americans derive more than 50%, more than half of their entire income in retirement from Social Security. Since 1985, American corporations have eliminated more than 84,000 pensions. When I first started in the industry, I'm going to tell you, give away my age a little here, started in the industry in 1978, we used to talk about planning for people as a three-legged stool. Your money, your Social Security, and your pension. For the vast majority of us these days, it's a two-legged stool. There are no pensions. Now, some of you have pensions if you work for the government or a massively big corporation that hasn't yet cut them, but lots and lots of us just don't. I mean, your parents or grandparents understood this from a really interesting standpoint. They probably went their whole lives. Their parents had pensions. They worked, they stayed at the same company, and they worked 30 or 40 years, and then they retired with a pension. That just doesn't happen as much these days. In fact, very little. And then maybe the most interesting statistic, and maybe the scariest one, is that 46.1% of Americans currently pass away with less than $10,000 in assets, less than enough to fund the average funeral for themselves. Now, the other way of saying that is they're broke. This is scary. This isn't a couple. This is almost half of us. And you have to ask the question, because this isn't the lowest income people. Nobody would be surprised if you told me that somebody that's at the poverty level or just above it is broke by the time they hit, the day they die. But this includes people with things like IRAs and 401ks with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in them, maybe more. And they end up literally with no money when they pass away, oftentimes before they pass away. If that doesn't send a little bit of a shiver up your spine, it should, not because it's scary, but because you've got to know, if this is happening to so many people, how does it happen and how do I avoid it? Because that's really what it matters. All right, so interesting questions. Do you insure your home? Most of us do. How about your car? I told you before, I live in Pennsylvania. You have a choice in Pennsylvania. You've got to do it. How about your health? How about your retirement? Well, if you're looking at Social Security, you are looking at the insurance program sponsored by the federal government that covers your retirement. And if you have that, you also qualify for Medicare, which is exactly the same thing for your health. It's a health insurance program sponsored by the federal government. No shame in it, but it's an insurance program. No surprise there, right? All right, this is interesting. I'm always stunned by this. This is census data. What's the risk of outliving your income? You might be surprised. When I first started in the industry, we used to plan, we'd sit down with people and say, well, how long are you going to live? The most common answer was, well, maybe we'll get to 80. Nobody said 90. Nobody thought the 100 was a possibility. But these days, you might be surprised. Look at this. If you're a single male, this is census data. If you're a single male age 65, you have a statistical chance, 50%, that you're going to live to 85. Now, most of us are probably like, yeah, I guess that sounds about right. But you have a 25% chance of living to 92. If you're a single female, age 65, you have a 50% chance that you're living to 86 or 88, I'm sorry, and a 25% chance you're living to 94. That's quite a bit different than the 80 that we used to think was common in the late 70s or early 80s. And then if you're a couple, age 65, if you are two people who care about one another, then if you're the male in that couple, you have a 50% chance, a coin flip, you're living to 92. If you're the female, you have a coin flip 50% chance that you're living to 97. 1 in 2 chance you're 3 years shy of 100. That's crazy. You can't underestimate. You might say, well, why? Why are couples so long lived? And the answer is pretty simple, because they care about one another, because they're, you know, 6 months or probably 7 months ago, my wife made me go in early for a dermatology appointment. Now, the reason is my sister died in 2015 from skin cancer. She got it. They didn't know what it was. It was in a very weird place. They didn't identify it correctly. They treated her wrong. Finally, she lived near Maryland, or in Maryland, near Washington D.C. She wound up at the NIH, and they did a study on her and did a DNA test of the area, and it came back as melanoma. And they started treating it, but by the time they did, all they could do was postpone the inevitable. But this, you can imagine, I mean, my sister and I were the kids that grew up. First day of summer, we were out, in our bathing suits, trying to get burned, not tan, burned. Because in our family, you can probably tell by my skin color, I get burned really easy. And I'm never going to get tanned until I get burned. And so that was how you get tan. And the worse it was, the more it peeled, the quicker it was over, and then you could get tan. That's just how it worked. But we were idiots. We didn't know. No, who would do that today? I know there's still people that do that today, but it's crazy. Most of us would never consider something like that now. But that's what we did. So we're super vigilant. Well, she saw something on my back that she didn't like, and she forced me to go in. Turns out it was a mole. It was weird and stuff, but it was just a mole. But that action of her, making me do it is what has changed for these couples. Maybe you hear somebody with a rattle in their chest or a cough, or there's something's just not right in their gait, or their memory is not quite what it was, and they need to see it. You force them to go. That's just what happens, and it makes a huge difference in how long you actually survive. This is Ethel Carterham. She is from England. She's 115. She's going to be 116 next month. She's officially the oldest person alive. She took Sister Anna Lucas's place, who was 116. She took Connie Tanaka's place, who was 119 and died in April of 22. There was another lady from Japan that died the year before that was 116. And the year before that, it was this lady from Jamaica whose last name was Brown, who was 122. We are living longer and longer and longer. But if you're like me, you're a little skeptical. You're probably saying, but wait a minute, none of those people live in the United States. And I understand your skepticism. If you'd have looked at the list of the oldest 100 people in the world 15 years ago, there was one or two, depending on the year that you looked, Americans. Everybody else was from someplace else. These days, it's chock full of Americans. Way more than there's ever been. And many of you, if you're my age, know exactly what I'm talking about because you're still caring for your parents. And they're older, much older. This is still happening, and it's happening more and more and more. And you can't discount it because one day that will be you and me if we're lucky. I know some people say, well, that's not lucky, but it's the way it works. And by the way, I've seen thousands and thousands of people in my career. When I ask them the question, I cannot tell you how many people, I don't want to live to be 90. I don't want to live to be 95. But I've had clients that at 89 will not tell me the same thing. They will change their tune. They'll take another year. They'll take another 5. They don't want to go because that's how we're built. And we're living longer and longer and longer. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. Benefit basics, how this works. Strategies for married couples. Options for divorced individuals. Options for widows and widowers. Now, if you're single, going, hey, wait a minute, what about me? Social Security is made for you, the single person. These are the offshoots. But if you're worried, is this going to be important to me? You see the next word? Boy, do you have to be worried about taxes. And do you need to understand it? And my guess is, from just personal experience, most of us don't. Most of us have had advisors that have said, oh, I don't do taxes, talk to your CPA. And when you talk to your CPA, they say, well, I do taxes, but I don't plan. I mean, that's not what I do. You should talk to your advisor. You just get the back and forth runaround. We're going to talk tonight about why that is just a problem and how to fix it. And then why coordinating your benefits is just an absolute necessity these days. All right, here's the basics. How do you get Social Security? You had to work at a Social Security covered job, a place where you paid in and your employer matched that. Now, if you're self-employed, you already know the bad news. You paid both sides of that, no discounts. Then they used the highest 35 years of your earned wage income to calculate your Social Security benefit. What do I mean? Not the first 35 years you work, not the last, not the middle ones. Each individual year is weighed and measured and prorated based on when it was, and then put together with the next 34 to get a total of the best 35 income years that you got after proration. They add all those together, and then they divide by 35 to get your average income, prorated income. Now, here's why I bring this up. Let's say you don't have 35 years. Let's say you have 34. They're going to take the highest 35, the only 34 years that you have, and they're going to prorate it, and then they're going to add it all together and divide by 35, not 34. If you have 30, they're going to add the 30 together and divide by 35. If you know much about math, you know that adding zeros to a division problem is going to make that answer much lower. Your average income is going to be affected greatly by that. So if you're in a position where you're thinking, hey, I might retire this year because I'm 62 or 63, hey, I can do it. I'm ready. but you don't have 35 years, you may be making a huge, well, look, I don't want to say it's a mistake because it might be right for you, but it is going to have an impact on what your actual benefit is and more substantial than you might realize. Now, you need 40 credits to get a full retirement age or to get a retirement benefit. Now, you can get a disability benefit with half of that, 20 credits. A credit is a quarter. You can only earn one per quarter, and you need essentially that's 4 credits per year. 40 credits is 10 full years of work, but it doesn't have to be over 10 years. It could be over 50 years. You just have to have the 10 credits or the 40 credits, the 10 full years of calculated income. A credit can be earned with any quarter where you have at least $1,890 of earnings in this year. That's a little less than $8,000 for a year. You could earn $100,000 in the first quarter. That's still just one credit. Needs to be spread in each quarter to earn those. But once you have it, you have got a retirement benefit, fully qualified. Now, if you're running along and all of a sudden you realize, hey, I don't think I earned $1,890 in some of those years. Don't worry, it was prorated. So, say 1982, that was about $218 a quarter, a little more than $800 a year. So it's gone up considerably. Now, once you've earned those credits, you have a retirement benefit, a qualified Social Security retirement benefit. Are there any exclusions or reductions? Well, there used to be, but they're pretty much gone. In 2025, in January 6th of last year, the Social Security Fairness Act was signed into law. Now, this changed things for government workers, for military workers, for railroad employees, for state, city, local government employees, for school districts. All of those places I just named for years and years and years had the opportunity, they still do, many of them still do, to pay into their own pension system and not fund Social Security from that job. So some of you work for school districts, and that school district has a pension program, and you don't pay Social Security, FICA, you pay into the pension program. It's a great way to boost up those pensions and get extra. But many of you, after working 30 years teaching, retire, and maybe you're 52 and you started working right out of college and you got a job. This is what happened with my wife. She got a job right out. She student taught in college, and by the next summer, she was interviewing for jobs and had one for the fall. That's very common. So you paid into it, but you didn't. At the end of those 32 years, you're only 52. So you retire, you've got this nice pension coming, but hey, I can go work in the private sector. I won't make as much, or maybe I'll make more. And very quickly, you can get those 10 years in, and now you've qualified for not just your pension, but you've qualified for Social Security. Well, this happens in the government. Many government employees retire much earlier than 65. They have this wonderful pension, but then they go work in the private sector. So let's say you're a government worker. You've got 30 years in, but but now you're working in the private sector. You earn Social Security because you get your 10 years, your 40 credits, 40 quarterly credits. Now you've got your pension and your Social Security to retire. Here's the problem. The WP, the windfall elimination provision, up until January of this year, said, hey, sorry, you don't have 31 years of working and putting in Social Security. And because you have the government pension, we can't touch that, but we're going to reduce your Social Security benefit. Now, here's the problem with that. You paid for it. You didn't get any discount. You have a discount because you didn't have 31 years. You have, and you don't have 35 years either. You have a smaller benefit than most. Why would they cut that down even more? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but Congress decades ago thought it was a good idea. And teachers and government workers and railroad employees and military have had to suffer with that for decades. But Congress said, hey, this isn't fair. And they changed that last year. Now, whether you have 31 years, you could only have 10 years in the private sector, and that's it. You get all of that. And in fact, they retroactively to December 23 paid you back wages from Social Security as well to catch you up. And then going forward, you get the whole amount. Now, the GPO is a little different. That would, let's say I worked for the federal government for 40 years. I don't have Social Security. I just have a wonderful pension. But my wife worked in the private sector. And, just with my wife, when we got married, she was working. And then eventually we had kids. And then she looked into our oldest eyes and she said, I don't want to go back to work right now. And that lasted for a while, more than a while, until our youngest hit an age that she felt comfortable that she didn't have to be around, at least not all the time. And then she went back to work. But she didn't have anywhere close to 31 years. And so when she retires, I might have said to myself with that government pension, hey, my wife's going to be okay if something happens to me. She'll inherit my pension, and then she'll get her own Social Security. She's going to have the same amount that we have if I was here, and she won't have to feed me. She'd probably be better off. But the government said the GPO, the government pension offset, or we nicknamed it the grumpy partner offset, said, hey, because she didn't have 31 years, this is worse, by the way, than the WP. They would reduce, she'd get the pension from the government, but they would reduce or, listen to this, eliminate her Social Security in total. This happened way more than I can express. Way more. And there was nothing you could do about it. But January of last year, they undid this, and it no longer applies. Okay, that's the Fairness Act, the Social Security Fairness Act of 2025. Okay, what is Social Security? How does Social Security work? You put in 6.2% of your paycheck this year to a maximum payout or income of $184,500. If you made $200,000, the last $15,500 you did not pay any Social Security FICA. You got a bump in your thing by 6.2%. You noticed it, but that goes up every year. I think in the 50s it's supposed to reach $1 million of income. I think it should reach $1 million of income today, but Congress has chosen not to do that quickly. Your employer matches that 6.2%. Now, if you're self-employed, you already know that you were lucky enough to pay 12.4%, both sides, the employer side and the employee side, with zero discount. That's how it works. It adds up to a ton of money. So think about this. 12.5% is 1/8. So almost 1/8 of your paycheck has been set aside in Social Security since the day that you started working. For me, again, I was 14 at Woolworths working behind the lunch counter washing dishes, an ugly job that I really glad I didn't do that long. But they paid me. I think it was $1.05 an hour, something like that. It was crazy. And I didn't get tipped. And I think I remember being happy, at least when I got the job, that I got it. All right. So think about how much money that is over your lifetime. Business Insider Insider Magazine did a study. They took an average couple, 65, I think the $50,000 income, combined the amount that they had put in between Social Security and Medicare over their entire lifetime at age 65 was, listen to this, over $740,000. It's a lot of money. Some of you are just going, hey, can I just have that back? And I totally understand, but that's not how it works. All right. So today's contributions covered today's benefit. This was sort of part of a trivia question. Social Security is basically a pay as you go system. The money that is collected this month is paid out next month. It, that's how it was set up in 1935. That's why in 1935 they had to collect enough money that the first benefit didn't go out until 1940 because it didn't come from Congress. It didn't come from a budget item. It was from Social Security's actual income from FICA. It's worked really well. That's worked incredibly well. But think about this: the average, you had to be 65. There was no 62 benefit back then. You had to be 65 years old to get the benefit, and the average worker died at 63. Most people didn't get it. And it worked out really well because our parents' generation, who was paying for that with their FICA contributions for their employment, was much bigger than the amount of people who were actually receiving benefits. And then baby boomers stepped in and started paying for our parents' generation, and there were way more of them than our parents' generation. As some years, 7 of us contributing for every single person receiving benefits. Does anybody see the problem here? Two things have happened. Well, first off, 77 million baby boomers. Any idea how many millennials there are? There's more, but not a lot more, 81 million. How are they all going to pay for us? It's interesting. It's a good question. And then there's the added benefit of we don't live to 63 anymore. We're living older and older and older. This has to make you question solvency. Is Social Security okay? Is there going to be a problem? Now, I have a very different take on this than you've probably heard. Everybody that I cannot tell you how many people I hear talk about this online. In fact, if you want to get 1 million hits, just do a video and tell everybody that Social Security is about to fail. It will get so much traction that it will just blow up. But the question isn't, why should I do it? Should I be doing it to get people to come click, or should I do it because it's real? I prefer to do what's real, and I have a very different take on this. Let me explain why there's a problem or what it is, and see if we can put a scope around it and explain why I have a different take than most people. 1983 was a really important year for Social Security and for baby boomers. It's the year that you got the letter. Now, I don't know if you remember the letter. I do. My wife and I got the letter on the same day. She got one and I got one. It was in the summer, in August of 1983, and the letter said this: since our inception of Social Security in 1935, full retirement age, FRA, has been 65. But if you're born after 1943, before and through 1954, it's going to be 66 from now on. And if you're born after 1954, add 2 months for every year that you were born after. So if you're born in 1955, it's 66 and 2 months, 56, 66 and 4 months, all the way to birth year 1960, where it caps out at 66 and 12 months, age 67. And anybody born 1960 or later, it's 67, not 65, and not 66. Now, I remember going to work the next day and at the water cooler having a conversation with somebody. This is a big deal for me, not because I was ticked about the 1 year, but because in the back of my mind, I had a big question. I bet you had it too. How many more letters like this am I going to get before I get to 66? What's my actual retirement age going to be by the time I'm ready to retire? Now, interesting, the good news is it hasn't changed at all. Here's what's interesting about that conversation, though. About 10 feet away from us, somebody was listening to us. And for the first time in my life, I heard this. What are you guys counting on Social Security for? It's not going to be around when you retire anyway. And I remember thinking, is he right? I've heard so many people say that to me. I've heard it every year, dozens and dozens of times since 1983. Now, maybe that's because I'm in this business. Maybe it's for other reasons. I don't know. But here's what you need to know. Social Security is fully funded to 2035. 9 more years. 9.5, technically. And then there's no money in Social Security. It's completely funded for the next 70 years at 83 cents on the dollar. This isn't a how are we going to make the payment? It's how do we find the 17 cents that we need for the payouts? 83 cents is already there. This is a much smaller problem than most people realize. Don't misunderstand me. It's not a simple thing to fix, but it is actually a very simple thing to fix. Here are the 4 basic proposals to solve this. By the way, these proposals have been around for decades. Congress just hasn't acted on them. You might ask that question. Why? All right, here's the first one. Increase the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64 or 5. That does not solve the problem, but it helps. Increase the full retirement age from 66 or 67 to 70 or 72. That does not fix the problem, but it helps. Here's the one that solves the problem. Increase the payroll tax. Just throw more money at it. And there was a study done by the OMB, Office of Management Budget, 40.5 years ago, said we raised the payroll tax by 1%, 0.5% to the employer, 0.5% to the employee. Instead of 6.2, 6.7, it fixes it for almost 75 years before we see a problem again. Can you imagine why in the world they didn't just do that? Would any of us actually complain about an extra 0.5%, half a point? Would any of us even pay attention or be able, if they did it and you didn't know, would you even be able to tell? It's such a small amount, half a point. If you make $1,000, it's not it's not $50. It's it's $5. It's such a small amount, it would have fixed the problem, and it still will. I just don't know if today, the longer they wait, the higher that amount has to be. 1% probably 5 years later won't do it. So I don't know what it is now, but the longer they wait, the higher it will be. And then the one that nobody wants to talk about, or that, quite frankly, everybody talks about, is reduced benefits. Here's the thing. That's not going to happen. And I'm going to tell you for a couple reasons why. I was at a conference. Bear with me because I think this is important that you know this. I was at a conference for advisors, an invitation-only conference it wasn't quite a year ago. It was in April of 2025 in Coronado Bay, California. It was a wonderful conference. Top speakers, the best speakers that I've ever seen. These were very elite advisors that were invited to this thing. You didn't get an invitation just out of the blue. I was so grateful to be considered. And I'm sitting, listening in awe of some of these guys, some of which I listen to all the time. And they had breakout sessions. And in those breakout sessions, one of them was on Social Security. It's a hot topic, has been for a long time. And I went to it because this is what I do. I care about it. And who knows, anything I can glean, I appreciate. So I'm sitting 4th row center. They've got the chairs up for the panel. The panel walks in. I don't recognize the moderator, but the first person on the panel, I recognize. It's a former director of the Social Security Administration. Don't know the next 2. They were very sharp people, by the way. But the 4th person I don't know him, But when he's introduced, he's also a former director of the Social Security Administration, one from each party, one Democrat, one Republican. I thought this is going to be interesting. And it was. They had a great session. And at the end of the session, they did exactly what I'm going to do tonight. They did a Q&A, a question and answer period. They answered our questions, and there was no surprise that the first question was going to be solvency. What's going to happen? What's going to happen when they run out of money? Here was their answer. Don't worry, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Well, how are they going to fix it? I don't know, but I know they're going to fix it. How do you know that? Because that's what they do. And then one of the former directors brought to our attention that just about 4.5 years ago, maybe it's more than that now, our government produced out of thin air $4.5 trillion with a T, $trillion to fund a few months of relief for COVID that we didn't see coming. We didn't know what's going to happen, but we did it anyway. Now, I'm not saying whether that was good or bad. I'm not saying whether the money was well spent or not. I have my opinions on those things. But listen, they produced it out of thin air. Something that absolutely nobody paid a dime to get. You and I paid a huge amount of money over our lifetimes to get a benefit that has been promised to us by Social Security. It is impossible for it not to be paid to you. And here's the reason why. The full faith and credit of the United States government would crumble. It would crumble. I'm not even talking about the fact that Congress has borrowed money year after year out of the benefit, out of the trust fund, and I don't think they've ever paid it back. This is something that they can't walk away from. They can't ignore. They're just kicking the can down the road, and the closer it gets, somebody's going to have to do it. And I don't know whether it's debt. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're not going to walk away from the debt that they owe to us. They can't. Here's the other thing. The other Social Security Administration director said this, and he wanted to impress upon us how Social Security works. Social Security has policies in place that are so strict that here's the way they work. If your Social Security increase next year, your cost of living increase is $100. I'm just using a weird number. That's a lot, by the way. It's $100. But your Medicare payment goes up by $150. It's the policy of Social Security to make sure that you don't get less than you got last year. So they reduce your Medicare premium by $50 so that you don't get more, but you do not get less than you got last year. Period. They're so absolutely worried about seniors getting less because it can cause incredible harm that they just won't let it happen. That's the agency that we're saying, oh, they're going to cut our benefits. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. First off, it's easily solved. And second, it would be catastrophic if they don't. And they know that. They know it. So why do they keep saying, oh, they're going to cut benefits. Oh, they're not going to have money. You have to answer that question yourself. I have my opinions, but I think they like us to be scared. And you have to figure out why. But boy, do they. By the way, every time they talk about this, you hear these conversations on one side talking about privatizing Social Security. And there's a huge look, people in the financial world, those big banks and finance centers, would love to get the trillions and trillions of dollars in the trust fund, the trillions of dollars that go in there, the trillions of dollars that your kids and grandkids are going to put in over the years. You don't think they'd like to get their mitts on that? They will say and do almost anything to have that happen. Just be aware. All right, so how do you determine your full retirement age benefit? You get your FRA, your full retirement age benefit, at 66 or at 67. You get 100%. If you take it early as 62, you get 75%. If you delay, you get these DRCs, delayed retirement credits. It's not compounded, but it is stackable. So 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8% equals 132%. The difference, listen to this, the difference between taking the 62 age benefit and getting 75% and taking the 70 benefit and getting 132 is 177% more. It's like getting a full retirement age benefit and a 62 benefit combined. You can't ignore how much different that is than if you took it early. Okay. 3 distinct Social Security benefits. Your benefit, the retired workers benefit, based entirely on how much you earned or your earnings record indicated. So based entirely on your work record. A spousal benefit has nothing to do with your work record. If you have a spouse and they're getting a benefit from you, they could have never worked a day in their life, never contributed a dime to Social Security. They're still entitled because of your contributions and benefits, not theirs. And widower, survivor benefits, the same thing. They're all based on the deceased worker's contributions, not on the survivor receiving those benefits. All right, bipartisan budget of 2015. I'm going to do this very quickly because 95% of it doesn't apply to you. This particular bill was passed in 2015 and it changed Social Security for married couples, divorced spouses, creating 3 distinct sets of rules based on when you were born. The act didn't change anything for widow benefits or if you were single, never married. Now, here's why I'm going to tell you what this benefit was and how it's changed. In 2014, if you'd have come to me, I'd have told you to file at 62 if you were married. Why? Because then I'd also told you to suspend your benefit immediately. But that trigger, that file and then suspend, would have allowed your spouse to come in the same day, the next day, and file for what was called a restricted application for only your spousal benefit. In other words, their benefit's still growing all the way to full retirement age. And then it's getting those DRCs all the way to 70, but they're collecting 50% of your benefit in the meantime. It was a great way to get some extra money. Now, the first rung of this were people born before May 1st, 1950. They're about to be 76 years old. If they haven't filed, they've made a huge error. Group 2, born after May 1st, 1950, but before January 2nd, 54. Those people just turned 72. They should have filed also. There is no reason for them not to. They're throwing away money if they haven't done it. But then the third group, these are people born after January 2nd, 1954. You don't have to raise your hand, but you're in that group. Everybody born after January 54, that voluntary suspension and restricted application, it ain't available. It's gone. They've taken it away. You can't do it anymore. So why am I spending time on this? Very brief amount of time, but here's the reason. When they wrote this in law for people born after January 2nd, 54, they added a thing called deemed filing. Deemed filing is a trigger benefit. Deemed filing means when you go to file, doesn't matter what you ask for, you're going to get every single time the highest benefit available to you and payout on the day that you file, period. And you might say, well, what's wrong with that? They're giving me the highest. Because prior to that, you could have taken a different one and allowed your highest one to grow considerably before you switched and took it. You can't do that anymore. You get what you get. Worst case scenario is that it's the worst thing for you. And here's the problem. Here's the reason I talk about this. If you're born after January 2nd, 54, you have to pay attention to timing strategies because when you file makes a difference now. And filing, you once you filed, you're done. You don't have the ability to switch or change. You have to make the right decision and the right timing the first time you do it, or you could have made a huge error. All right, considerations for married couples. To qualify for spousal benefits, you must have been married for at least 1 year. The primary worker must have filed. So, my wife and I have been married 49 years. She cannot get a spousal benefit. She can file, she has for her own benefit, but she can't get a spousal because I haven't filed yet. I'm waiting till 70. So until I file, she can't do it. That's true for you as well. Primary worker must have filed for you to be able to get a spousal benefit. Generally, you must not qualify for a benefit on your own that is equal to or greater than one half of the primary worker's PIA. PIA is primary insurance amount. It's a fancy calculation that gets you to the number that equals your full retirement age or very, very close to it. All right. What do I mean, though? If your benefit is bigger, you can't get if your benefit is $1,000 and your spouse's benefit is $1,999, you qualify for half of that. That's less than 1,000. You don't get your benefit. You don't get their benefit. You get yours. Period. That's it. All right. Here's an example. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement age is $2,000. Jane, his spouse, would be eligible for one half of that at her full retirement age. Simple, she'd get $1,000. Again, but if Jane's benefit was 1,001, she gets hers, not his. Okay. If you file early or late for a spousal benefit, well, look, if you file your own benefit early, you get less, right? 62, you get 75%. 66 or 67, you get 100. At 70, you get up to 132. But if you file a spousal benefit early, at 62, say, you don't get 75% of the benefit, you get 70%. So in John and Jane's case, John's benefit is 2,000. Jane's case at full retirement age, 1,000, half. But at 62, she gets 70% of half, not 1,000, but $700. If you delay, you get these wonderful DRCs, 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%, up to 132%. If you delay filing a spousal benefit, you get nothing. You don't get nothing. You get the original spousal benefit, the amount that you could have gotten at your full retirement age benefit with no increase. It's not no increase. You get cost of living increases every year, the same as everybody else, but you don't get the DRCs, the delayed retirement credits. They don't apply to spousal benefits. I cannot tell you in my career how many people I've seen waiting to file their spousal thinking that it was growing with those DRCs, delayed retirement credits, and it wasn't. Here's worse. If I make a mistake, let's say at 68, I realize I made a mistake. I should have filed at full retirement age. I can go back always a year, 6 months guaranteed, but most cases a year, and they'll send me a lump sum of that and then start paying me out after that. If I delay filing a spousal benefit, I don't get anything. You can only file a spousal benefit going forward, never backwards. So any delay, any money that you've left on the table by not filing at your full retirement age stays on the table. It never gets paid back to you. Okay. Survivor benefits. At the death of a first spouse, the surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit, right? No problem there. They can take their own benefit, or the benefit of the deceased. They have a choice. Or if the benefit was filed early, let's say John files at 62 And then he passes away at 63 or 64, and Jane goes to take that benefit. Well, instead of getting the full retirement benefit that she would have gotten if he hadn't filed, she's entitled to the 75% benefit that he signed up for. But this is happening so often that the government has stepped in and said, we'll bump that 75% to 82.5% of the PI of the deceased if the deceased filed early at 62 or even at 63. They'll up it. Now, why is this such a big deal? The government's done this because so many people are filing at 62. This is one of the reasons I spend time on that solvency issue, is because fear. My grandfather, I love my grandfather, and he was just a wise guy. I got to live with him. My grandmother, his wife, died when I was 7, and he lived with us from the time I was 7 until my mother remarried when I was 13, and then he lived close by. And he really took me under his wing. He wanted me and my sister to know stuff. And he had the same. He said, never, ever, ever make a financial decision out of fear. He says nothing good comes out of that. And boy, those are wise words. But people are scared, and they're filing for their Social Security early because they think A, it's gonna go under, or B, I'm gonna die and I won't get much. They're making financial decisions based on fear. And that's just not a good way to go about this. Here's the thing. If you file at 62, or you file early, I'll tell you a statistic, by the way. Last 2 years, 40% of Americans took their Social Security at the earliest possible time, 62. They couldn't wait to get it. When Sorelli did this survey of people who file, ask him, why do they file early? The number one response, afraid Social Security might go bust. I want to get something. They put all this money in. I want to get something out before it goes under. It's just a decision completely based on fear. Okay. All right. What are the most common questions, things that we see, the biggest mistakes that we see with spouses? High wage earner files early, short changes to survivor benefit. Happens all the time. No delay, both delay past full retirement age. Nobody claims that spousal benefit and literally just throws money away that is not recoverable from Social Security. These are just mistakes you need to avoid. All right, considerations for divorced individuals. To qualify for divorced spouse benefits, you must have been married for 10 full years in a row to the same person. So no stopsies and starties. You can't be married for 3 years and then divorced for 2 years and then married for 3 years and then divorced for 2 years and then married for 5 years. Doesn't get you a 10-year marriage. Has to be 10 years in a row. And you can't currently be married. If you remarry after a divorce, you no longer have divorced spouse benefits. You have current spouse benefits after 1 year. Same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as they do for regular spousal benefits. There is zero difference between a spousal benefit and a divorced spouse benefit, with one enormous exception. It's called the independently entitled rule for divorced individuals. I've been married 49 years. My wife cannot file for a spousal benefit because I haven't filed. But if we were divorced for at least 2 years, whether I filed or not, she's entitled. She can go in and get that benefit. He, me, or her doesn't have to file anymore for you to qualify after 2 years. This is a big deal, and it's changed divorce spouse filings a ton. If you didn't know this, you should pay attention to it. It's a big, big deal. Okay, bipartisan budget data for divorced individuals. I am going to spend zero time on this. It's identical. If you're Born prior to May 1st, 1950, you're already 76. Born after that, but before January 2nd, 54, you're already 72. File. If you're past that, if you're born after January 2nd, 54, that restricted application is no longer available. But if you're older than your spouse, your ex-spouse, and you're not currently married, you can claim your own benefit as early as 62 and then switch to a larger divorce spouse benefit when your ex-spouse reaches full retirement age. Listen to this. This can be done more than once. This can be done more than twice if you have multiple qualifying ex-spouses. So that means you have multiple qualifying. Qualifying means 10-year marriages. You have multiple ones. You can file on one of them at their full retirement age, or if both of them are similar age, you could file on the one that doesn't, that's the smallest one, and let the other one grow to the max before you switch and take that one. You've got some options that you've never had before. That's pretty interesting. Most common questions we get from divorced individuals: do divorce benefits affect the current spouse or their dependents? No. You could have two ex-spouses and a current spouse and dependent children, and they all qualify to get benefits under your account as long as they qualify for the benefit. Are the exes notified that you're taking Social Security off of their account? And the answer is no. In fact, just like HIPAA prevents your doctor from sharing your medical information without your written permission, Social Security can't share your information either. Here's the only exception to that. If you were divorced and you can prove that you had a 10-year marriage to an individual, proof meaning a marriage license and a final divorce decree from a court showing at least a 10-year marriage, then they are bound to give you the information necessary so you can file. They won't tell you everything, but they will tell you what you're entitled to and what you qualify for under that, and the information necessary to get it. That's it. All right. Widows and widowers. Okay. To qualify for survivor benefits, widow or widower benefits, you must be 60 years old. This is the only retirement benefit that is available to anybody prior to age 62. Widows and widowers can apply as early as age 60, but they must have remained unmarried prior to their 60th birthday. If you remarry for a day, you no longer have these benefits available to you. If you marry a day after your 60th birthday, you qualify for this and you get it even while you're married. You had to have been married at least 9 months prior to the death of your spouse. Couple of exceptions, but they're very few and rare. Law enforcement officer of the United States or any Commonwealth or district inside of it that was full-time, killed in the line of duty. Law enforcement officer killed in line of duty. Fireman, full-time fireman killed in line of duty, or member of the armed service of the United States, any armed service of the United States, killed in line of duty. Those are the only exceptions. Any other person could be married 8 months and 29 days, and they don't qualify. Has to have been 9 months. Okay, I am going to do a quick case study on filing, and then bear with me just a couple more things, and then I've got what I think is the most important thing I'm going to talk about tonight, which is taxes, and I'll do a case study there as well. But let me do this quick. This is a widow client example. This is very common. John, never elected, dies at age 64. Benefits at his full retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane, 5 years younger, age 59 when John dies. She remains unmarried for that year gap until she's 60 years old. Jane's estimated benefit, this is hers, not John's benefit, but Jane's benefit that she's earned by her work experience and her earned record, Her benefit she can't get until she's at least 62, but that would be 1,197 at that time. All right, I'm going to show you three different things. I called the first one file without thinking because it's what most happens. This is the most common thing that happens. We walk into Social Security and say, hey, how much can I get? In fact, Social Security tells us that's the most common question they're asked. How much can I get? What's the most I can get? Well, if you walk into Social Security is going to say the only benefit you qualify for, Jane, is the survivor benefit. Because you're 60 and the other benefit you can't even get till you're 62. So she says, okay, how much is that? Well, it's not 2,150. It's 1,537 because you're taking it 60, not at 66 or 67. She says, I'll take it. Now we're going to do very simple math here. So no cost of living adjustments, just raw numbers. We're going to say she lives to 85. We're going to do, so that's 300 checks for 1,537. That comes out to a total benefit of $461,100. Strategy one is a little different. It says, hey, don't take that benefit. Take your own benefit, but you got to wait till you're 62. So maybe you're working, maybe making $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Hey, if you're making 50, that's $100,000 for two more years of work. Do that, and then take your own benefit at 62. Why? Well, how much would that be? $1,197. Well, that's less. It is, but that other benefit, the survivor benefit, it's less. It's only $2,104 or $1,537. If you don't take it and you wait until you're 67, it's matured. It's now $2,150. Switch. By switching, taking your benefit from 62 to 66, the survivor benefit from 67 to 85, you've increased almost $80,000 from $461,000 to $538,000. That's a huge amount. You can't ignore that. And strategy two maybe is my favorite. Look, Jane doesn't have a job paying $40,000 or $50,000. She needs the income. Take the survivor benefit. Take that $1,537 and keep it until you're not full retirement age. Keep it until you're 70. But at 70, we're going to pay attention to this, and we're going to remember that your benefit is still your benefit. And the $1,157 or $1,197 at 62 is growing all the way to full retirement age. And then after that, it's getting those DRCs all the way to 70. And by 70, it's matured to $2,108 a month. And it's maxed out. That's when you switch. By doing that, we've increased the file without your thinking benefit of $461 by more than $102,000, almost $103,000 to $563,904. I don't know anybody, I don't care how much money you have, you just can't throw away $100,000 in your retirement. It's too hard to come by. Those are the kinds of mistakes that you just can't afford to make. Okay, if you decide to take your benefit at 62, 63, 64, 65, for some of you at 66, but you decide, hey, I'm going to take my benefit while I'm working, and you earn more than $24,480 in 2026, for every $2 above that number, they're going to reduce your Social Security benefit by $1. What does that mean? Well, that means if you're making $2,000 a month in Social Security and you made $59,000 in the private sector, or it doesn't matter where, anywhere, at the end of the year, you will have collected $24,000 from Social Security, and you will owe every dime of it back to Social Security. Get this, with interest. This is a horrible way to start retirement, guys. You cannot let this happen to you. You cannot, I mean, people are so quick to make this decision. By the way, a huge portion, a surprisingly big portion of those people that are electing at 62 are still working and don't know about this or are finding out about it the hard way. There was a big thing on 60 Minutes did a thing last year and then did a rebuff of it about 3 months ago, talking about the problems that people are having. They just didn't know that this was going to be a problem and they owe so much money back. So look, if the next year, by the way, here's how you find out. You don't tell them, they tell you, because when you file your taxes, the Social Security gets notified. You file in April, sometime in July, you're going to get a letter. This is just a horrible way to start retirement. You should absolutely be careful of this. By the way, in the year that you turn full retirement age, you still have a problem. If you are turning 67 thinking, hey, I'm okay, I'll just take my benefit now because I'm FRA. Well, you're not FRA until your birthday. So any money you earn prior to your birthday still counts here. If you got a birthday in November, December, you might still have a problem. Now, if your birthday's in February, you probably won't. But you need to pay attention to this. That being said, any amount you earn after your FRA does not count towards this this earnings test. You could earn $1 billion and there's no reduction in your Social Security benefit whatsoever. But if you're $1 billion, you might not be surprised that you might have to deal with taxes. Now, I wish I could ask you guys how many of you knew that Social Security was taxable before tonight, or more than maybe how many of you knew more than just recently. It's a big deal. I wouldn't be surprised if many of you did not think that Social Security was taxable. And here's the reason. Didn't used to be. The original Social Security, the bill that was passed into law in 1935, was for a tax-free benefit. The income that you received in Social Security was tax-free. Here's the reason why and how they did that and how it was justified to be tax-free. You paid taxes already. What do you mean, Dave? I didn't collect Social Security. No, you paid taxes on your contributions to it. Your FICA payments got taxed. This is essentially double taxation. You paid for the money going in, and you're paying for the money coming out. It was never set up this way. But let me tell you how it happened. I told you before that 1983 was a really important year for Social Security and for baby boomers. It's the year that they decided to change this law and start taxing your Social Security. And they put a serious target on yours and my back. They targeted baby boomers. How do I know that? Well, I'll show you in a second. But they set it and let inflation do its job, and it really did. And boy, is it a problem today. But this is taxable, and you've got to deal with this. And by the way, it is ruining people's retirement. People are just, I'm going to show you some examples here. I want you to pay attention because this is such a serious problem today. Most people don't even know about it. I will tell you, one of the reasons that we have been forced to cover this is that most advisors don't talk about taxes in retirement. They'll tell you, oh, I do with the money. I don't deal with the taxes. You need to talk to your CPA. But when you go to your CPA, the CPA says, I do taxes. I don't do tax planning. Talk to your advisor. And you get this runaround, and nobody tells you what to do. And the problem is, some of the advice they give is horrible. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a minute. But some of you are wondering, what in the world, how complicated is this? Go to irs.gov/forms 915, that's publication 915, you get it's a 33-page long document with a worksheet. That's how much it takes to figure out how to put taxes on your Social Security. This chart was invented by Congress in 1983, 43 years ago. This is called provisional income. It's the chart for provisional income. Boy, if you haven't written anything down tonight, I'd write that down. Provisional income. All right, here's what this looks like. If you're single, bear with me here. This is the good stuff. If you're single and you earn $25,000 of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. If you're single and you earn $34,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. By the way, I think 2,752 pages in Social Security law, 83 of which are taxes. There's one line, if I ever want to laugh, I look at it. There's one line in the code for taxes for Social Security that says, we never tax 15% of your Social Security. If they said we never tax 85%, I would go, wow, but that's not how this works. If you're a married couple, I don't care how you're filing, jointly, separately, doesn't matter. If your combined income is $32,000 of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. That's last dollar tax. So if you have $50,000 of tax, it's not the 10% you pay on the first 12,000. It's not the 15%, it's the 22% you're paying on the last dollar. If you earn $44,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Okay, I can see the hands. Hey, tell me what provisional income is. Let me give you a list. I'll go through it pretty quickly, but I'm going to go through it. Here's what it includes, and then I'll tell you what it doesn't include. W-2 income, all your W-2, all your gross wages, all of that income counts as provisional income. All your pensions, I don't care what kind of pension it is, military pension, disability pension, corporate pension, I don't care, any pension money goes and counts 100%. All wages, all interest income, all tax-exempt interest income. I can't tell you how many people I've caught, saying, "Oh, I have all my money in munis, so I don't pay tax." That's great, but all that interest income in munis is still going to count as provisional income to try and get you to pay tax on your Social Security. All 1099 income, all of it, doesn't matter where it comes from. Could be sales, could be casual, it could be anything. Could be you clean houses for a living, you get a 1099. You are going to count that as provisional income. All real estate income. Some of you are very smart with this, and you have dug in and you figured out there are huge tax benefits to owning real estate and collecting rent income and depreciation on property. But all of your rental income, period, before those things is going to count as provisional income. All business income. I don't care what kind of business you have. If it's a private business, a partnership, an LLC, you're going to take all of that income and you are going to count it as provisional income. Maybe you have an LLC or a partnership where you get a K1 at the end of the year. K1 describes your distributions, oftentimes not taxable, but guess what? They still count as provisional income. And you might have a K1 for $25,000 for your participation in the profits that the company made, but it was never distributed. The company kept it because next year we need to do an expansion or hire an employee or do some capital project. you could probably deduct that, except that still counts as provisional income, whether you received it or not. Maybe you're like my daughter and son-in-law who overpay taxes. I'm not a big fan of this. They overpay taxes so they get a big forced savings and a tax refund next year. I've seen them go on vacations with it, put a roof on their house with it. I've seen them buy cars with it. They see this as a great way to save. I see it as giving the government an interest-free loan. And I don't like it, but they do it. And here, you need to know that when you do that, that tax refund is going to count as provisional income in the year that you receive it. All right, here's the juicy ones. Do you have an IRA? Do you have a 401k, a 403b, a 457? Do you have a SEP, a SERP, a SLRP? Any tax deferred account where you put money into it tax free, it grows tax deferred. And then when you're in retirement, after 59 and a half, you can take it out penalty free, but you owe tax on it. All of that money counts as provisional income. Now, if you have a big amount in there, wait till you hit RMDs and you're forced to take that money out, whether you need it or not. RMDs are required minimum distributions that hit in early 70s that force you to take that money out. Now, some of you are scratching your head going, wait a second, my advisor told me to put money in those. Those are great saving mechanisms for retirement. And when I took the money out, I would be in a lower tax bracket. Well, sorry. That's not how taxes are working these days. In fact, if you pay attention to the tax brackets, there's a really good chance you're going to be in either a 22 or a 24 tax bracket, even if you don't have that much income. And that's probably the tax bracket you were in when you were working full time. It didn't save you a dime. But all of that income from your 401ks and your IRAs and 403bs, your TSPs, all of that is going to force you to pay tax on something that you were never intended to pay tax on, your Social Security. It's a terrible trap. It's a terrible trap. Some of you are doing mental math and wondering, well, maybe I'm close, maybe I'm there. Let me give you the one that is going to make you go, oh. 50% of your Social Security income. If you're single, 50% of your Social Security. If you're married, doesn't matter how you're filing, both of your Social Securities counts as provisional income. If you have $2,000 and your spouse has $3,000, that's $5,000. That's $60,000 a year. Without another dime, you have $30,000 of provisional income. You're already paying taxes on your Social Security, period. This is a problem. And look, I cannot express to you how problematic it is if you have not done any planning on this. By the way, I said we were targeted. I said that a couple of times. If your grandparents in 1983 had $44,000 of provisional income, they were in the top 2% of income earners in retirement in our country. They were wealthy. Here's why I talk about this. If this had been prorated over the last 43 years, that 44,000 would be over $142,000 today. If they taxed people with $142,000 of provisional income, I wouldn't be talking about it. But that's not how it's working. They set it. They chose to never adjust it for inflation. By the way, this is just adjusted at the exact same rate that your Social Security check was adjusted. And they didn't adjust it at all, knowing that this would tackle and hit baby boomers in a profound way. All right. I'm going to do a quick case study. I'm looking at the time and I'm a little over, and I apologize. Um, Bear with me. I think this case study is the most important thing I'm going to talk about tonight. All right. This is a very typical couple. Clients 64 and 62. Very typical. Just over 34,000 in combined annual Social Security income if they file at 62. Why do they want to file at 62? They're starting retirement with right around $752,000 in 401ks and IRAs. Qualified assets. No surprise there, right? They've done well. Now, if you're thinking, that's a lot of money, Dave. Well, this couple with 752,000 has a huge running out of money problem. And some of you are going, that ain't nothing. How could they even think about retiring with only 752,000? This couple with only 752 has a horrible tax problem too. We're going to say they get a 6% annual return, 3% inflation. They need $70,000 in per year in inflation adjusted after tax income. We're going to say they live to 86 and 89 respectively. Let's take a look and see what's going on. If they file at 62, they are walking away from $186,496 of Social Security that they absolutely need and they cannot afford to walk away from. They just don't see it. Nobody showed them this. Nobody said, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. By the way, this is not filing at 70. I think this is filing at one of them at 68. The other one might be at 70. But it's not waiting all the time to 70. This is what the cash flow looks like. Those blue bars are their Social Security. The orange bars that you see are their 401ks, their IRAs, the $752,000 in assets. The black line, the graded line, that's the $70,000 in inflation adjusted income that they need. At the end of the orange bars, that white space is nothing. It just shows you where their money ran out. This couple started retirement with $750,000, and 2/3 of the way through, they're broke. Remember that first thing I said this evening about the statistic of 46.1% of us literally running out of money, not having enough to fund their own funeral? This couple started with $750,000. That's where they are, and they have 1/3 of their retirement left. Now, I'll compound the problem for you. It is one thing to run out of money when you're 70. It's a whole nother problem when you're 80. It is not nice. It is just not nice to run out in your late 70s and 80s. It's a big, big problem. All right, I'm going to show you what we would do, what a corrected cash flow looks like. So pay attention to this one and then look at the next one. Here's the change. This couple all of a sudden makes it to retirement. It makes it through retirement. I want to point out we didn't add a dime. We didn't change anything in terms of their income or their investment portfolio. We didn't change anything other than how they funded their retirement. They're still retiring at 62, but look at the difference here. Which retirement do you want? But the real scary part here, folks, is when do you want to find this out? Because if you find it out here at the very beginning, fixable. But if you wait till the money's gone, if you wait here, sometime, halfway through retirement, they're going to wake up to the fact that they're going to run out of money. But what do? It's too late. They've already made the mess. There's no way to fix it at that point. Here's the difference. By the way, what did we do different? Here, they're taking their retirement early. It's not enough to fund their living. So they have to pay out money from their 401ks at the same time. That forces them to pay full tax, 85% tax, or 85% of the tax, or tax on 85% of their Social Security, tax they were never intended to pay. Here, look what we're doing. We're using the 401ks and the IRAs. That money they've never paid tax on. So when they take it out, they're going to pay tax anyway. That's easy. But the blue money they've never paid tax on, they don't want to pay tax on. By doing this, they avoid it dramatically. It changes everything for them just by having a plan. I will tell you, it's not simple. I don't want to make it sound like it's not rocket science though. But this is the kind of stuff that most people sit down with retirement planners and don't get. I don't misunderstand me. There are guys out there that do this, but you need to have this stuff. If you don't have a plan that's looking at this and looking at the impact of taxes, yeah, you got an issue. All right. Look, more than $100,000 if they don't run out of money, more than $100,000 saved in taxes. 14 more years in portfolio life. They get to the end of their retirement without a hitch. Look, if you look at your statement, your Social Security statement, there is no COLA attached or applied. You need to be able to do any kind of planning. You need to project out what a reasonable COLA is so that you have some idea how to do this. Social Security just won't do that for you. It assumes you work to a static work age, 62, 70, or whatever your FRA is. Most of us don't use those. And then maybe the most egregious thing, the thing that bugs me the biggest about Social Security is I've been married 49 years. My wife and I are inextricably attached. We're attached at the hip financially. I mean, we have one house in our name. We have cars in our name. We have bank accounts in our name, investment accounts in our name, but they're in our name. She doesn't have money. I mean, at least if she does, she hasn't told me. I don't have money that I haven't told her. We're one entity in terms of that, but Social Security looks at her record and my record like we don't know each other. Like we're totally separate individuals. That's crazy. And it cannot offer you advice. All right, AARP says whether you're close to retiring or just turning 50, you should check your Social Security earnings records each year to make sure it doesn't contain errors. So it's important to know and be aware that some of those changes have statutes of limitation on them. And if you don't do them soon, you may not be able to do them at all. Okay. Every time I do one of these, I offer a personal Social Security analysis to the people that have attended the workshop. I'm going to explain what that is in a little bit of detail. I'm going to explain who does it for you, and then I'll explain, if you will, why we do it. And then we'll start the Q&A. So bear with me just another minute or two. All right, what does it include? It'll include a break-even concept. It'll look at this and figure that out. I think this is the least important thing, but I understand people want to know, and we'll show that to you. It's easy to use. It's easy to implement. It's point and click. It'll be simply explained. It'll look at alternatives and shortfalls. Hey, Dave, you're suggesting this, but what if I want to do it this way? What does that look like? We can do that. What if I have a shortfall? What are my options? What if it looks like this isn't going to work? What can I do? We'll show you. And then what about my retirement income, the cash flows, the tax analysis? Can I save money in taxes? And if so, how much? And what do I do to do it? And what about my income? What if, can you tell me about my income plan? Am I counting on my assets for too much? Folks, are you counting on them for less than you should? Both of those are a problem. One, it ends up in running out of money. One just is a much lower lifestyle than you could afford and could enjoy. What about Roth conversions? What should I be doing? By the way, the only thing you didn't hear me mention on the provisional income list is Roth, because it's the only thing that doesn't count. Roth accounts, Roth IRAs do not count as provisional income. Income from those Roths don't count as provisional income. So should I be doing Roths? And if so, no offense, Dave, show me, is it going to save me money? And if so, how much? And when should I start? And when should I end? If you're not looking at this, somebody's not doing their job. And then how about coordinating my assets? Folks, if you don't have somebody that's coordinated your Social Security with your qualified assets, your non-qualified assets, your IRAs, your 401ks, your pensions, your life insurance, your TSPs, any account, qualified or non-qualified, that is going to be used in your retirement accounts, then you don't have a retirement plan. You have a retirement guess. And don't misunderstand me, it's better than no guess, but not much. I am stunned at how many people we sit down with that just don't have this. And it's just a necessary thing in this day and age. Okay. If you go to www.ssa.gov, that's the Social Security Administration's official website. If you have an account, you already know this, you can download your statement. If you don't have an account, it'll take you about 5 or 6 minutes to set one up. It'll stay with you the rest of your life. You'll most likely these days use it to help you get scheduled for an appointment to file. And you'll have to set up a password and a login, but it really isn't that hard these days. You have to prove who you are. They'll probably ask you what car you had in 1983, but sometimes they do that. It's pretty interesting to verify you are who you are, but you'll be able to download it. And then you'll want to schedule your complimentary consultation. I'm going to give you 2 options tonight, and then I'll explain who's going to do this. Option 1 is this. It's everything I just explained. It's a full filing strategy. It's a tax strategy overview. It's retirement asset and Social Security coordination, focused on taxes and retirement asset coordination. It's the whole kit and caboodle. It's everything that you need to get a start in serious retirement planning, Social Security planning, tax planning. This is option 1. It's everything that I mentioned tonight. Option 2 is a little different. Maybe you don't have money in 401ks or IRAs. Maybe you don't have a lot of assets like that are going to affect you in taxes and could become incredibly taxable and cause you to pay taxes on your Social Security. Maybe most of what you have in retirement, maybe all of it, is Social Security. For you, you have a timing question, not a planning question, a timing question. For you, I've created a workbook that will answer those questions and tell you how it works and give you the timing plan that you need. That's option 2. Option 2 gets you the book. Option 1 gets you everything else. Those are the 2 options this evening. All right, let me explain who's going to do this evening. Let me introduce him to you. His name is Sam Addington. Sam works for me. I call him a friend. He is an incredible guy. Let me tell you a little about his background. Sam joined the military at 18 and with one intention. He wanted to fly. He didn't just say helicopters. He knew he wanted to fly the Apache attack helicopter. And that's exactly what he did. He went to flight school. He learned. Sam became so good at flying over in Iraq, over in Afghanistan, so good at it that they brought him home to the States to teach new pilots how to fly. He became a trainer, and he was incredibly good at it. All the while, Sam, while doing all of that, while flying the most lethal helicopter in the world, the most complicated to fly helicopter in the world, Sam earned his degree and his MBA in finance and financial planning. Sam knew when he left the military what he wanted to do. He had no doubt he wanted to work in our industry, helping people with their retirement, helping people with their planning. And he is so good at it. But he's not just good because of that. One of the things that Sam brought with him is in the helicopter corps. There's a well-known story about these guys that flew in Mogadishu, and many of you have heard about or read or seen the movie, maybe even Black Hawk Down. It's a story. It's a famous story about guys who were in a situation where helicopters went down and they didn't know where they were, and they could barely get snippets of what they were saying. But the two guys that were flying helicopters over them, waiting to be able to see if there was any chance they could help, any chance they could rescue, did what's called in the Corps active listening. They're trained to do this as these pilots because it can make the difference between life and death. They learned that by listening to those little snippets, they could pull things from it that nobody else would recognize or hear, but they would. And that's exactly what they did. And they wound up figuring out from those snippets where they were, exactly where they were. And they were able to go in and save some of those pilots. It's a remarkable story. But Sam uses that exact technique when he's talking to people. He will hear things and it will spur on more questions that most of us just never get to hear. I cannot tell you the kind of compliments we get about Sam. First off, he is an incredible guy. And one of the reasons I get excited whenever Sam volunteers to do this is because I know what's going to happen. I know the kind of reaction that you're going to have when you sit down and enjoy spending some time with him and getting the results of him doing some of the work for you. Okay, that's who's doing it. I explained what's being done. I explained who's doing it. Let me explain why we do this. And then we're going to get to Q&A. I'll ask our tech team to put up in the chat. If you look at the chat, they're going to put up the link that you can go to. And I'm asking, most of you will probably use this. I'll ask them to use the QR code. The QR code is simple to use. You just hold your phone up and open the camera. Don't take a picture of it. Just hold your camera up and you'll see a rectangle, yellow rectangle or something like that. Just touch that. It'll take you right to the link. You can do that while you're listening. Nothing will interfere with that. If you have trouble with that link or you can't do it that way, take a screenshot of the link and then look at the screenshot and touch it. It'll take you right to it as well. Or just use the link. All right. I told you I would tell you why I do this, and then we're going to start. It's really simple. I love Costco. I'm a huge Costco fan. Some of you don't have Costco. You have BJ's Wholesaler, Sam's Club. Doesn't matter. Whatever that wholesale place is. I love going, and I push my wife as often as I can to go on Saturdays, which she hates. But I love Saturdays because when you walk into Costco on Saturday, it feels like there's 100 people frying, cooking, microwaving, warming something for me to try. Most often stuff I've never heard of or seen. And I love doing it because I love to taste something before I buy it. We have a system. My wife doesn't even look at the product. She just looks at me. And if I get a big smile on my face, she says, we'll take one. And if I nudge her, okay, we'll take two. I see people saying me too. I get it. It's wonderful. Well, that's what we're doing here. This is why I do this, because I know if you see something wonderful, if you sit down with Sam and you have that conversation and you go through this and he does some of that planning for you, you are going to be wowed. And there's a really good chance you'll say, wow, maybe we need to do more. That's it. I love you either way. I'm appreciative of you either way. You're going to get something incredibly valuable either way. But I think there's a chance you'll want more. Look, there was a guy in the 70s. He was an actor named John Houseman, and he played Dr. Kingsley on The Paper Chase. I don't know if you remember that or not. It was a movie about law students at Harvard, and he played the contract law professor that was super hard, but everybody respected him. And then in the 80s, he did these TV commercials, and he had this thick British accent, and he would say, "We get business the old fashioned way. We earn it." That's all we're doing here. We know that if you see quality work, we might earn your business. It's how I've gotten my company and grown it so fast and so furiously, how we're in 43 states, how in 10 years we've surpassed most companies in the RIA space, because people see it and want more. That's it. I'm hoping you're one of them. But if you're not, God bless you. Either way, you're going to get something incredibly valuable. That's it. Okay, let's do the Q&A. Sorry for I don't know how I took this long today, but we did. Um, sometimes I'm just I get carried away. What can I say? I love this. This is so important to me, and I love being able to share it with you. All right, I'm going to ask our tech team to pull up our first question, and here we go. There we go. All right, this is from Christine. I worked for 30 years, 4 months for state. I took my ERS pension, but I think that might be CRS pension, but went back to work part-time in private sector. Do I still get both? I'm only 61 and still working, turned 62 in March. And the answer is if you've worked in the private sector for at least 10 years, 40 quarters, doesn't have to be 10 years, but 40 quarters, then the answer is yes, you get both. No deduction, no discount on either one of them. Congratulations. Good job. Okay. I was going to say, this is from Jane. I was going to say the government borrow money from Social Security Fund too. That is why it's a mess. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. You're absolutely right. Christina's saying PERS, PERS. Yeah, there you go. Lori, could I watch this again? Started late. Yeah, just you can either, if it'll let you, you can just rewind. If not, just when you're done here and we're finished, just click the link again and it'll take you right back to it tonight. It'll be up for a day or so. Okay, Lori, what happened when you were married for 36 years, divorced now? Yeah, Lori, when you look back, it'll go right through that. But the answer is, if as long as you have 10 years of marriage, you are qualified for a spousal benefit. Let me explain that. You're not going to get that spousal benefit if your benefit is $1 more than half of your spouse's benefit. So if their benefit is $4,000 and yours is $2,001, you're going to get your benefit, not theirs. Here's the exception. If they pass away, you're entitled to their whole benefit when you retire. You'll get their whole benefit at your full retirement age, whether your benefit is half or not, or more than half or not. You can qualify for that. Great question. Okay, this is Nicolette. I'm older than my spouse. Can I take my full-time at Social Security and then switch over in 2 years when he retires to the spousal? Because his spouse will always be a little more than what mine is. Yeah, if the spousal benefit is more than the benefit that you get when he retires, you will be able to switch. But Nicolette, that means your benefit has to be less than half of his benefit at your full retirement age. But yeah, you're absolutely entitled to do that. Great question. Patricia, what's not provisional income? Roth. A Roth A Roth IRA. That's the only thing. Qualified money. But qualified money interest counts, capital gains count, all that counts. Roth is the only thing that doesn't. I see a sad face. Sorry. All right, Devora. I will have way less in investments to retire. Yeah, I get it. All the more reason to make sure you get this right. I need to go over this again. You can rewind if you need to, or just click the link again. Thanks for your comment. Terry Dutton, I can't believe I'm on my phone. Okay, I get it. I can't believe how much time I'm on my phone, but I totally get it. All right. If you're on your phone, you can still use that QR code. You just take a picture of it or take a screenshot of it, touch it, it'll take you right to it, and you can still be on and listen. Won't be a problem. Okay. Next question. All right, Marion, what are the costs of the options? You might have said that you're complimentary and I missed it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that question. The workbook is absolutely complimentary, and so is the analysis. Both of them are complimentary. Thanks for that question. Sometimes I don't say it well enough, and I appreciate you asking me. All right, next question. All right, this is Bridget. I retired at 62. I'm arrived, and my husband collects Social Security. I do not yet. Should I wait until I'm 70 to start to collect Social Security at my full retirement age next month? Yeah, that's a really good question, Bridget. I can't answer it because I don't know enough about your circumstance. That's why I asked Sam to do this. There's so many questions that go into that. If you have investment accounts, if you've got money that's going to affect your whether or not you're paying taxes on Social Security, those are all going to have an impact on this. And there's no way for me to know without digging in. I will tell you this: it probably makes more sense to wait, but I can't tell you whether it makes sense to wait to collect your benefit or whether it makes sense to wait to collect your husband's, or even if you could collect your husband's without knowing a lot more questions that I don't want to ask you in an open forum about your income and stuff. But that's why Sam does this. But thanks for the question. Good one. Devora, great event. I have to go, but we'll watch again. Thank you, Devora. Appreciate your feedback. All right, Marion, what if a former spouse dies after having retired at 67? Does the ex-spouse receive the ex-spouse's dead benefits? Yeah, they're the full retirement benefit that they received, or if they died prior to their full retirement age, the full retirement age benefit is available to you. The question is it more than yours? If it's not more than yours, you're going to get yours. But if it's more than yours, you're going to get the full retirement age benefit of the spouse, or the benefit they received if they took it early. Good question. All right, Jay, I have an appointment on February 4th to sign up for Social Security income. I had emergency surgery. It put me, that's Social Security disability, and put me in surgery. It put me out of work and denied any benefits. I won't be 67 until next year. Will I be hosed going back to work? I make over 24,000. Yeah. If you're receiving benefits from Social Security, disability or retirement benefits, there is first off, if you're receiving disability benefits, there's a limit of how much you can earn per year. And there's definitely that 24,450. If you go over that, they're going to take $1 back for every $2 more that you earn at work. So yeah, I don't know if you call that hosing, but it feels a little like it. All right, 7866015. Is the spousal benefit automatic, or does the spouse have to apply? the spouse absolutely has to apply. You will not get it. So if your spouse files and you're entitled to a spousal benefits, you are only going to get that benefit if you apply. Period. Great question. Lori, I was told Social Security by Social Security that they do meetings in person anymore. I think you mean don't do meetings. Is that true? It's not 100% true, but it's mostly true. Most of our clients wind up doing a Zoom meeting or a phone meeting with Social Security. That is the way it's been since COVID, which is pretty crazy considering they're still staffing local offices. But that's how it works. All right, this is Ellie. If I take early retirement at 62, is it smart to continue to work part-time? It depends on your circumstance, Ellie. As long as you stay under that 24,450, it's not going to harm you. If you need it, I certainly think that's a wonderful idea. There's no reason not to, as long as and if you're working part-time, I am pretty sure you're going to stay under that. You just need to be careful to do that. But yeah, I think that's a fine idea if you want to do it. I guess I want to make sure that makes sense for you. And what I mean by that is it may be more important to delay because of what you need in 10 years from now, because taking it at 62 is going to get you a much smaller benefit. And that small benefit is going to stick with you the rest of your life. That's the one that you have to worry about. Great question. All right, Karen, if both people are receiving Social Security benefits, what happens if one passes? The larger benefit is passed on to the remaining spouse, and the other one disappears. Great question. Patricia, thank you for your time. Great info. Already scheduled an appointment. Thank you so much, Patricia. You're going to love it. Is the spousal benefit automatic? Oh, we already asked that one. Marion, clarify here. Divorce scenario. Ex-spouse with higher earnings is 2 years younger. I am able to claim one half of his benefit. He claims his Social Security. Or do I have to wait for him to claim his Social Security benefit? I think you said, and thank you. Yeah, you cannot get half of his until he's claiming. That is a really great question. Thanks for asking me to clarify. You have no benefit until he claims, except your own. Thank you, 7866015. Appreciate it. Karen says, thank you. Thank you, Karen. I think we're getting down to the bottom here. This is from Jay. If I take Social Security at 65 and 11 months, can I suspend it when I go back to work, then collect on my full benefit? Yes, you absolutely can. So you can collect the benefit and then suspend the benefit. The only way to make up for the time that you actually took the benefit, you won't get that growth, but you'll get the growth that would happen afterwards, including delayed retirement credits past 70. But the only way to get the amount back is to pay back the benefit you took. But that's rarely done these days. So yeah, you can stop it and then it'll grow, and then you can start it again at a later time. Always start it before at 70 because no benefit to wait beyond that. Okay. Tammy, so if I make 30K, how much would be taken out of Social Security? So 30K is more than the 24,500 by $5,500. For every $2 over 500, they're going to take $1 of your Social Security back. So they're going to take out $275. All right. So if I have to wait for him to claim, I can claim mine at 67. Thanks, Marion. This is a good question. Say then after he claims his benefit, I can switch to claim his. Did I understand accurately about the possible switching? Yes. Here's the complication. If his benefit is less than double yours, you're not going to be able to switch. Your benefit has to be less than one half of his. So if his benefit is less than one half, your benefit would be less than half, would be half, which is less than yours. You're going to keep your benefit at that point. But if half of his benefit is more than yours, you can switch. Easy. Okay, I think that is the final question. Okay, lots of questions tonight. Thanks. All right, right at the top of the hour. I am going to thank you. Thank you so much for attending. Thanks you. So many people still on. I think we almost have 100 people still on. So thank you again. I want to wish you a wonderful evening. May you have wonderful planning, and may you all enjoy a safe and wonderful retirement. Bless you all. Thanks so much for attending. We will talk to you soon. Good night.